Dear viewers across the world, most welcome to my channel NAGA World Conflict Zone. Context: Israel Motley coalition has one goal: ousting toxic Netanyahu. After four deadlocked general elections in 2 years and the daunting prospect of a fifth, Israeli politicians were on the verge of forming a coalition government that would the bring and the end of the 12 years of often controversial rules by Benjamin Netanyahu. The head of the ultra-nationalist Yamina alliances, former Defense Minister Naftali Bennett, who had been dubbed the Kingmaker, announced that he had received the backing of the 6 elected members of his party to form a coalition government with Yes Yadid party head Yair Lapid, who is the one with the presidential mandate. Yet done, the deal alliances which unraveled at the 11th hour. The pressure was mounting on the leaders of the various parties joining the coalition to either withdraw or demand concessions. Under the tentative rotation agreement, Bennett became Prime Minister first, while Lapid would be alternative Premier. The government will have a 2-seat majority in the 120-seat Knesset. To achieve that, Bennett and Lapid agreed to form an alliance with Labour. Israel Beitenu and Meretz, a combination of the leftist, centrist and right-wing parties. They also hope to reel in Bennett Gantz, Blue and White and Golden Sarah's New Hope parties. But the government will still need the outside backing of the United Arab List, which would support the coalition without becoming part of the government. Constructing such a wide-ranging alliance, let alone maintaining it, would be a challenge, but despite the deep ideological differences, there was one common objective: to bring Netanyahu down. The 71-year-old Likud leader, who had dealt with Bennett when he had the mandate to form a government, launched a vehement attack on his potential successor and the new government. Netanyahu accused Bennett of committing the fraud of century and said the new government would be a left-wing one. He warned that he was the only one capable of forming a right-wing government. He asked what message the new government would send to Gaza and Iran. Israel has had enough of Netanyahu, who has poisoned the country's politics over the past 12 years. According to his critics and even former allies, the task at hand is to remove him and leave him out in the cold to face possible jail time for crimes he allegedly committed while in office, including receiving bribes and breaching public trust. He was also facing an internal coup within his party as members were now calling for his replacement as leader. However, the fact that Netanyahu outgoing is good for news to the Palestinians or the rest of the world. Benny, the son of immigrant from the US, is a far-right ultra-nationalist who opposes the creation of Palestinian state and support gradual annexations and extending Israeli law over more than 60% of the West Bank. A former member of the Likud party, Benin, has served as a head of the main political body. The Yas Council represents Israeli settlers living on occupied Palestine's land. He was given a number of portfolios in previous Netanyahu government. His view of the Palestinian citizens of Israel also not positive. In 2012, in 2014, the then Minister of Economic and Religious Services released a letter to the members of this community, who make up about 20% of the population, warning them against becoming a fifth column. Bennett also advocates increased Jewish control over Al-Haram al-Sharif in East Jerusalem. In 2014, the self-made tech millionaire told a meeting of the Conference of Presidents of major Jewish organizations that Israel was attempting to exercise greater control over the noble sanctuary, stating that they had already taken measures that would ultimately influence the eastern side of the Jerusalem, and that will include the Temple Mount. Still, some analysts believe that as head of so-called government of chance, which will include left-wing and centrist parties, while relying the support in the Knesset from Arab legislators, following through an annexation would be politically unfeasible for Benin. It is worth nothing that this main partner or parties, Lepid, a secularist and former journalist, is more focused on the economic concern of the Israeli middle class, while also calling for the gradual phasing out of rules that attempt Israel ultra-orthodox community for military service. He has also previously proposed new measures to limit what he characterized as the disproportionate influence of minority parties, such as the ultra-orthodox and West Bank settler parties. In Israeli politics, his program may clash with that of Bennett, who relies on the support of these minority parties. The most pressing questions that Israeli analysts are now asking is how long these coalitions might survive before internal ideological differences begin tearing it apart. It is unlikely to complete a full term, but the longer it lasts, the more difficult it would be for Netanyahu to make a comeback. That for now is the rope that keeps all these parties ties together. Most likely the new coalitions will be more like a caretaker government while the country rids itself of Netanyahu's toxic legacy. So in this way, as Bennett formed a government, that means coalition government, how long it will last, time will say.